Excellent. All right. Well, we are going to officially get started, and welcome tonight to the monthly Monday night live stream. Tonight it's all about tournaments, and this is great for somebody who has never been in a tournament and is thinking about going to a tournament, and it's even great for somebody who might be interested in running a tournament. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this will work as flawlessly as it did previously. Let me get my video up first. Oh, it's already up. Okay. All right. Now I just need a thumbs up. Actually, put it in chat because right now everybody's kind of hidden from my view. Well, actually, let me just see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you guys can just put in chat, you could see everything's good. All right, cool. All right, so Mah Jongg presents Mah Jongg Tournaments, Learn the Ropes. Welcome everybody, and welcome to everybody watching on YouTube. The first part of this presentation is going to be a little video for you to watch, so I'm going to go ahead and play it. Hopefully you'll all hear. All right, so this is a tournament regulation sheet or tournament rules sheet. And when I am preparing for a tournament, about a week before, I send this sheet out to everybody so that they know the rules, and we're going to go through each one of the rules, but so that they have an idea of the rules, because every tournament is run slightly different. Although I'd say 90% of the items today at different tournaments are the same. So we're going to go ahead and go through the different rules to start with. All right, now tournament regulations do include the National Mah Jongg League guidelines as published in Mah Jongg Made Easy. And that would be the most recent publication, which is 2020. However, tournaments do alter the rules slightly, and they have the prerogative to do as a tournament director. Now, there's always etiquette and sportsmanship at a tournament, and there seems to be a lot of these items that we're going to go through that are troubling at times. So it's always a good reminder to read your etiquette and sportsmanship policy for a particular tournament if your tournament has them. Now, this is a pretty extensive list that I have here, and some of the smaller tournaments, if you're attending a smaller one, may not have as much detail. But certainly mobile devices need to be set to airplane mode, silent, or vibrate during games. Pretty obvious about that, right? Oh, I got to turn my sound off now. We don't need that on anymore. Okay, so let me back up here just a bit. All players are required to display the National Mah Jongg League card on the table in front of their racks. Now, there are experienced players out there that eventually memorize the card during the year, but you are required to have the card in front of you. And mostly because it could be very intimidating to a new attendee that sees somebody playing without a card. You can imagine that, right? Being a brand new tournament goer and then playing next to someone who doesn't even need their card. Yeah, quite intimidating. All right, unless reaching for a discard or to pick a tile from the wall, your hands should always be kept in front of your rack. At the end of each round, you want to sit silently or exit the building. Now, this one is a difficult one to enforce, and I'm telling you, if the number of times I have to use my microphone and tell everybody to keep the noise down because other people are still playing. I don't know if that's ever going to get resolved. A friend of mine gave me a gong, and I mean it's loud, right? I did use it at one of them, but I haven't used it since, and I'm thinking about starting back up with it again because it really will get everybody's attention. But the problem with that is that it's also disruptive to the people that are still playing. So I think that's why I had decided not to do it. Poor sportsmanship will not be tolerated. If there is a complaint, I will caution the attendee. And if it happens again, either on that day or at a future tournament, they will not be invited back to one of my tournaments. And I am really, really adamant about that. I just think people need to be kind and happy for other people if they win. And, you know, there are players that if their hand is called dead, they get all upset. I've seen tiles thrown on the table. I've seen all sorts of things. It's just not cool. If there's a disagreement or a question during the tournament, nobody at the table is allowed to give an answer. If there is a disagreement going on, the director of the tournament needs to be called over. Now, sometimes I'm finding that East is the one who is responsible for the scorecards and making sure all the scorecards get back up to the tournament director. After the rounds, sometimes East is offering their help, and I appreciate that. However, if there is something that I may decide to let go, because there's sometimes crazy things that go on, I may let something go, or I might say, no, this is how it has to be. I'm the one that needs to make the decision as a tournament director. So keep that in mind. See, this is what's good when you hear about this stuff, because then when you go to a tournament, you could bring this knowledge with you and share it if you need to. If somebody else starts talking about the rule or what you should do or shouldn't do, you can always say, you know, we really need to call the tournament director over. And that's what we're here for. The tournament director always has the final say. So just remember that, and that's what's coming up right here. Always has the final say. And if somebody else, there's any kind of arguing with the tournament director, usually they're disqualified from the tournament right away. So please be careful about that. Scoring and penalties. The points for a winning hand will be the value as shown on the National Mah Jongg League card. Scoring is very different than the standard scoring that we play outside of a tournament. So let's take a look at the following to see how the penalties and points are added to or taken away from your scoring. So we have 10 points to a hand value when a player picks their winning tile. So you add 10 points to the winning value. 20 points to the hand when a player wins a hand with no jokers. 10 points to plus 10 In the event of a wall game, players who declared Mah Jongg in error or had a hand declared dead are disqualified and will receive 0 points for that game. Then we have 0 points in the event of an incomplete game. Now we're going to talk about penalties, and these are the reasons for declaring someone's hand dead. 0 points to a player with a hand that's declared dead. 0 points to a player with a Mah Jongg in error. 0 points to a player who throws in their hand after Mah Jongg in error. If all but one player throws in their hand, the player with their hand intact will receive 10 points. Minus 10 points to a player who peeks at a blind pass. And see, some of these things, especially like the blind pass, the peeking at the blind pass, there are people that never learned that you can't look at a blind pass. That's why it's so important to make sure you refresh yourself with tournament rules, because they're different. Minus 10 points to a player who discards the winning tile to a hand with no exposures or 1 exposure. So we get a little challenging when it comes to the penalties. You know, home games, you don't have these sort of things. You may have a table rule if you throw Mah Jongg to 3 exposures, but you don't have minus points when you throw to none or 1. Minus 20 if you throw to someone with 2 exposures. And then minus 25 to the player who discards the winning tile to someone with 3 exposures or 2 exposures in a quint hand. Minus 25 points to a player who misnames a discard, resulting in Mah Jongg. And the winner gets the value of the hand that they were attempting to play. These are going to be dead hand declarations. So for all of the below situations, the erring player stops playing and receives 0 points. Any of these is 0 points. Picking ahead, picking out of turn, having too few or too many tiles on your rack, having an invalid exposure. And by the way, in home games, there are times where somebody might not call somebody's hand dead. But when you're in a tournament, if they can do it, they're going to do it, because it'll be to their advantage if they get more picks from the wall. So they're going to be a little bit more alert to anything. Exchanging a joker before picking, discarding before picking, declaring another player's hand dead erroneously. Now, if that happens, if you declare another player's hand dead, well, you would have to call the director over, and the director would verify based on the exposures and what's on the player's rack, or in the player's rack, I should say, whether the hand was actually viable or not. So if you declare somebody's hand dead in error, you're dead. All right, knocking tiles from one's own rack into the discard area. If the tiles can be easily put back in their rightful spot, the game would continue without the erring player. Unfortunately, if everything gets all messed up, it's going to be, everybody would have to stop. Knocking tiles over and the tiles cannot be put back in their rightful spot, the game would stop, which is what I just said, and the player who knocked the tiles over would receive minus 10, and all others will receive plus 10. So it's not a total loss, thank God, for those that had to stop playing. Placing a called or claimed tile in the slope part of your rack. Now this is something that a lot of people aren't used to doing. You know, they're used to taking a tile when they call it and putting it in on their rack with the rest of their tiles rather than up on the flat part of their rack. All right, Mah Jongg in error. If the 3 other players expose their hands, all get 0 points. If 2 players do not expose their hand, the game continues with the 2 remaining players. If one player does not expose their hand, that player gets plus 10, while others get 0. If a player calls Mah Jongg in error and the mistake is rectified before the hand is exposed and before any other player exposes or disturbs their hand, the game continues without penalty. If Mah Jongg is called and the player doesn't pick up their Mah Jongg tile and place it on the rack, calling a discard. Calling a discard tile must be verbalized. If a discard is taken without it being announced, the called tile must be returned to the table and is no longer available to the caller. If a discard is called and touched, it must be taken. I know you guys know a lot of this. Now, this is from the 2023 bulletin. The called tile must be placed on the flat part of the rack. This was in the 2023 bulletin new rule. But please note that in outside of tournament play, there is no penalty. There's no penalty. You could see it says a tile is called for either an exposure or Mah Jongg must be placed on top of your rack. But there is no mention of what happens if you do it. So here's a situation. You have to do it in a tournament, or else you will be called dead. If 2 people call the same tile for exposure or for Mah Jongg, the tile goes to the next player in rotation. The National Mah Jongg League is different than this one, but this is the way, all of the tournaments that I've been to and the way I run mine, this is the way I do it. The difference with the National Mah Jongg League's rule is that they had, a couple of years back, changed this rule up to say if 2 people call the same for exposure, the first to take tiles up from their rack, from the sloping part of their rack, or to pick up the discard and put it up on top of the flat part of the rack, would be the one that would get the call. Now, of course, if somebody is going to be calling Mah Jongg and another person is calling, well, we know Mah Jongg definitely takes precedence. So here it is. If one calls for a tile and one for Mah Jongg, it definitely goes to the person calling Mah Jongg. Now let's talk about joker exchanges. When doing a joker exchange, you must first verbalize it and do a hand-to-hand exchange. And I want to pause that for just a second. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of a hand-to-hand exchange. I teach this. It is absolutely a must for me as an instructor to teach a hand-to-hand exchange. And the way that is done is when somebody has a joker that you want and you say, may I have your joker please, you take the natural tile and you hand it to that person and let them give you their joker. You don't grab their joker because you're not supposed to touch anybody else's tiles anyway, and you don't put the tile on the table, because let's see what else we have to say here. If the exchange was not verbalized and you place the tile on the table, it will be considered a discard and no joker exchange will be permitted, although there's no penalty. You want to get in the habit of doing a hand-to-hand exchange, as we've all missed jokers and put the tile down and we're like, oops, but it's too late at that point if you have not announced it. So be very aware of that. It's really, really good to get into good habits. All right, now if at a tournament there is 3 players at a table because maybe one didn't show up, maybe they didn't have enough to fill a table, the Charleston is omitted. I know there's a lot of 3-player table variations out there, but for the purpose of playing in a tournament, you would not be using the Charleston, including the Charleston, I should say. For the 4th game, each player rolls the dice and the highest roller is east. So those are the 2 most important things that you would need to know as far as 3-player Mahjong. All right, score verifications. Now and I'm going to be showing you 2 scorecards in a little bit as well so you could see. Scoring may be calculated by East or just verify each player's score. You just need to know how the tournament director is handling their scoring. And directors always make announcements at the beginning. So if they didn't send out an email ahead of time and give you all this great information in a sheet, they're going to make announcements. As a matter of fact, they're going to make announcements anyway, which is what I do. I go over some important things and reminders at the beginning. Now, tournaments today have the OMR machines, which is the optical mark, or the OMR software, I should say, the optical mark recognition software. And if they do what I have seen at other tournaments and what I do at my tournaments, because I now have an OMR software system, East will hold all the scorecards and fill them in. Otherwise, everybody holds their own scorecards during the tournament. But this is something new now that's going on. So, I just want to try to give you all the different scenarios that could happen. Once the East player verifies the scores, they will hand them to the player to verify and initial their score. And again, I'm going to show you 2 score sheets, but it could vary. So I can't say anything is set in stone here. I just want to let you know what types of things could be happening. At the end of the round, East will initial at the top of the card. It could be somewhere else, and give all the cards to West, who will deliver them to the tournament director. Now, this is how I do it. This is how the other tournaments that I've done it. But again, there's so many tournaments going on around the country, and everybody's got their own system. So just be sure to know what your particular tournament is doing. Now, if a game is missing a score, the score is going to be a 0. I have had a couple of situations that were very unusual, where the player came up right after the round and explained to me a situation that had occurred, and I was able to get someone else to verify the information, and then I filled in the score. So there will be exceptions to the rule, but under normal circumstances, if nothing is mentioned and time goes by, it's going to be a 0 if there's no score there. I mean, we try to be lenient when we can be. Okay, once scorecards are turned on, they can't be altered, but the tournament director does have the power to do that if they feel it's necessary. Okay, so here is one of the scorecards. 2 scorecards on one sheet. This was my old scoring system and the name of my old tournament. And this is what a score sheet looks like. There are so many variations of this theme, I can't even tell you. I mean, this one, mine are long. I've seen some that go horizontally rather than vertically, and some are full sheets, half sheets, whatever. But these were mine. So you could see on here, you've got your sessions will be here, name, the player's position will be on here. And but anyway, you're going to see the next one come up too, which is pretty cool. But this is it. You fill in your score, it's verified, and then at the very, very end, it's verified by East. And then down here, I had the little reminders of scoring, of the points, the pluses and minus on the points. Now I have it on the back of my table numbers, which are laminated, and that makes it nice. So if you don't remember, you could just turn it over and be like, oh, what happens when I throw to 1 or more exposures? And you could look and see it. This is an OMR score sheet, and this is what I use now at my tournaments, and it has made life, I can't even tell you, so much easier. The first time I used it at the tournament, it did go a little slow, way faster than having to tally everything on a spreadsheet. But it did go a little slower because I was still getting used to the system. But man, these things just get scanned in and everything is tallied up, and it's amazing. Totally amazing. And this is what that looks like. And when there's OMR score sheets used, every tournament I've been at that has them, including mine, has all of the players hand their scorecards for that particular round to East. And East is the one that fills in the scoring and then gives it to the player to initial to verify, yep, nope, that's not mine. And by the way, if there's a mistake, all you have to do is put an X through the circle. You don't have to initial it and do all that good stuff, just an X and the correct circle's filled out, and then you initial it, and then at the very end of the round, East will initial it and then give, like I said, all the scorecards will go to West, and West will deliver them to tournament director, an assistant, whoever. Now we're going to talk about rounds. So every single tournament's going to have a different amount of rounds. Okay, my tournaments are 55 minutes a round. That could change. I don't know. Right now it is. I felt like splitting it in the middle. Some tournaments are 50 minutes. And I get people that say that's a little bit too fast for me. And then 60 minutes, I've had people say that's too much time. So I thought, well, why don't I just split it in the middle and do 55, right? It's a compromise. So, and that's what I kind of feel comfortable doing is 55-minute rounds. And of course, okay. Now, there are 4 games per round, and the number of rounds will vary depending on the tournaments. Typically you'll see either 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. All right, we also will have special hands at tournaments. This is just a sample of what they are, but normally they're either up on, if there's a TV where they could broadcast to the TV, they could be up there, they could be on a whiteboard, they could be just pinned to something, but wherever it is, tournaments have fun things to do. And they don't just have special hands, which if you make a special hand, you usually get either a little gift or a small amount of money or something just to make you feel special about getting that special hand. But not only that, not only are there special hands, but sometimes special situations. And I didn't put those up here. I probably should have, but now that I'm thinking of it. But special situations could be something like the person who, for each round, the person who is the first to Mah Jongg, something like that. Or maybe picking Mah Jongg on the last tile. I mean, that happens quite a bit. So fun things like that will also be included, and they'll be posted. Sometimes they change in the morning, from the morning to afternoon, and sometimes they'll leave hands up. Like this big hand, sometimes they'll leave it up until somebody makes it, and I've never been at a tournament where somebody has made that hand. It's crazy. All right, table rotation. So East stays put. They never move during the tournament. And East players are very, very valuable to a tournament director. For one, they don't get up. I mean, they obviously can get up and stretch and all that, but they don't get the opportunity to go switch around and move around. They stay where they are. And some people like to be East, as they prefer not to getting up and rotating. But players B, C, and D do move. So we're going to go through the rotation. All right, so there we go. You started at 3, you played 4 games for round 1, and you now are going up 1 table, and that means you go to 4. After table 4, after you have played your 4 rounds, you're going to leave table 4 and you're going to go down to table 5 because you're moving up. Now, after you've played your 4 games at table 5, you're going to leave table 5 and you're going to go down to table 6. And again, you're going to play 4 games, and you're going to leave table 6, and you're going to head up to table 7, where you're then going to play another 4 games, and you're going to go down to the next table and end at table 8. Now, if there are 2 sessions, a morning and an afternoon, then this will be split up. But you'll know by this rotation how it works moving up. I wanted it more for you to see how you move, how the different positions move. Player C moves down 1. Start out with this particular one at table 9. And start at 9, play your 4 rounds, and you're going to head to 8, where you're going to play 4 rounds because you're moving down. Once you're done with your 4 games at 8, you're going to move down to 7. When you're done with 7, you're going to head on down to table 6, and then you're going to play another 4 rounds at table 6. Once you leave table 6, you're going to head up to table 5, where you're going to then play another 4 games. And once you leave 5, you will end up at your last table here at round number 6. Okay, that's easy. The next one's a little bit more complicated. So let's take a look at player D. Player D is going to be moving up 2. All right, starting at 8, we've done 4 games, and now we're moving up 2, which is table 10. You're going to play your 4 rounds, and now you're going to move up to table 12. That's up 2. I even have a skip there in the boxes so you can see the tables you skip. Once you're done at table 12, you're going to leave table 12, and you're going to move up 2 tables, skipping table 13, and you're going to end up at 14, and you're going to play your 4 games there, leave table 14, and you're going to skip 15, and you're going to end up at 16, play your 4 games there, and you're going to then, we're going to end up at table 2, which is the ending round. So here's what I want to say. When you're at 16 and you're moving up 2, I have people come to me and say, what do I do? I'm at 16. I'm supposed to move up. There's no 17 or 18. What you do is you go to the starting table, and then you will end up at 2. That's the table rotation. It's not that difficult, but I wanted to show one where you end up at 16 having to move up 2, because that's often asked. Now, the same thing would occur if you were moving down, and let's say you were at table 2 and you had to move down 1 each round. You would go to table 1, and then you would go to the last table at the tournament, which with this diagram is number 16. And that's how that works. Very simple, and at the same time can be very confusing. And I will say a big thank you, and then I'm going to open this up to questions if anybody has any questions. And hello everybody who joined on YouTube. Hi Gloria, nice to see you. All right, so if anybody has any questions, we are a small, I'm going to stop sharing right now.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, dear.
Why, not why, how does one talk to the tournament director about being East, or do they already have their people that are always coming to these tournaments that they always let be East?
That's a good question. So when I send out probably 2 months before the tournament, I'll send out an email. Now, when my forms, my registration forms come in, there's a checkbox on there that says, are you willing to be East? And if you are willing to be East, would you bring a set? So a couple months before the tournament, I go through all my registration forms, and I send out an email to everybody, and I say, you had agreed to be East. Are you still willing to be East? And verifying that you could bring a set. a lot of times people don't even check it, and I get blank registration forms. And that's challenging because then there are people that want to be East or can be East and they forgot to check the box. So all of that has to be done in email and communicating all that to everybody. And then I'll turn it into a PDF file. And I'll get that link put into the video description when it gets posted on YouTube after I edit it, which I have to do. Yes, you may.
Would you be willing to let us have your PDF on your Mah Jongg scorecard?
Okay, so the one that is the older one, right? Not the
Yeah.
OMR one.
Right.
I have no problem sharing anything that I have. So yes, I have no problem sharing anything that I have. Even the rules, whatever I have, I'm more than happy to share.
Will you put that in the YouTube that you're going to publish out of this?
Yes.
Okay, you'll put those links in there.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. You're welcome. All right, so any questions at all about this? I mean, it really is pretty simple. Honestly, I have to say that the table rotation sometimes is the most challenging thing when somebody gets to the last one and they're like, where do I go? I got to move up and there's no 18. So it's very interesting, you know. So I think that's one of the most challenging things. And then other than that is to really just refresh yourself with the rules. And if you have habits that you've been used to doing, you know, like taking a tile and putting it on the table, not announcing a joker exchange and shooting it across the table and just assuming that the person knows what you're doing. Oh, you know, tournaments are stricter. And I think one of the things I really wanted, the reason I wanted to do this was, first of all, for you guys to see how much is involved as far as the rules and the scoring and everything in a tournament. But more than anything, what I want to say to you is that they're not as intimidating as you might think. The first tournament that you attend, I'm not going to deny it, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking, but as soon as you start playing, you're going to start feeling more comfortable. And the other thing that I would want to good advice to give you is that if you are a slower player, if you're a beginner player, keep up the pace. So if you are not able to make decisions quickly, just keep the pace up and just pick and throw. Because at tournaments, you don't have the luxury of making decisions, you know, every single time having, you know, give me a minute, now everybody has that opportunity to do that. Let's, you know, I just want to say it's not like, you know, somebody's going to be saying, what do you mean you need time? No, it's not like that. But if you were to stop after every single time you picked a tile from the wall because you had to make a decision, then somebody's going to get a little bit stressed because the tournaments are timed. And being, you know, 55 minutes for 4 games, you're going to want to play so that you don't end up having a game that goes unfinished, number one. And I would even suggest that you practice timing yourself at home when you're playing with your friends so that you can get comfortable playing 4 games in a 50 to 60-minute round. And East is also going to keep everybody on track. So East is the one who is responsible for scoring. They watch the clock to make sure that if things are running a little bit slower, that they let everybody know that as well. This is pretty all-encompassing as far as tournaments go. So it's a good idea. So I'd love to see in chat who has never been in a tournament and is going to be entering a tournament soon. I think I saw Paula said, great timing. My first tournament is this coming Saturday. Anybody else? If you want to put it in chat or unmute, we could do so. I'm just curious. I hope I didn't frighten you guys. It's more about being informed and know that it's really not that bad. You just have to take the plunge and enter into your first one. It really isn't. Yeah. And just stay at pace. That's my big thing, is to make sure that you keep up the pace, because I think that's sometimes one of the biggest complaints that I will get when there are new players. But we want to welcome new players, because if we don't have new players come to tournaments, then the tournaments don't grow. That's how we do it. So we're always going to have newer players. And yeah, beginner players, I think, should probably get a little better prepared before they play in a tournament. But first time tournament goers are going to be a little bit slower just because they're nervous. So give yourself a break if you are, and you'll get through it. And I promise you, it's not that bad. It really isn't. And it's a lot of fun trying to win the big money. It's always a lot of fun. Alrighty, well, I don't see any more questions. Okay, now I want to mention, before everybody gets off, a great way to enter into a tournament and not feel any stress at all is by participating in my longest day tournament that's coming up. I Love Maj and MajCon is hosting the longest day tournament, and it's on June 19th. And it's going to be at I Love Maj. And if you guys haven't already listened to the videos on YouTube or know about it, I'll just give you a little information. The tournament goes from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can play the 16 games, which is the max that you can play anytime during the day at all. There's no pressure. And you are not playing against other live people, but rather playing against advanced bots. This puts everybody at a level playing field, and also gives you a chance to play against expert level, not humans, but bots, which play as tough and as competitively as a person does. And I mean it. So this is a wonderful way to get started, because the bots will not judge you whatsoever. So it doesn't matter. And they will not be part of the scoring. You will be able to look at your scores and track them all day. And you'll also be able to look at the leaderboard, which will have the top, I believe it's 5 players. And it's going to be fun. And the way to register is just by donating to my team for the longest day on Alzheimer's. And the link will be in the video. It's going to be in every one of my videos until the tournament is over. So I would love for you guys to join us. We have a nice group of people already signed up, and I think it would be a wonderful way to get your feet wet in what it's like to play in a tournament. It's not timed, so you don't have that stress. The rules are going to be, I believe, posted or sent out ahead of time. I think it's like a 1 sheet with the rules that we're going to be sending out. And that's it. Now, let's see. Gloria says, I've only been in group tournaments and not sure if anything like yours. No. They're all different. So, yeah, I can honestly say they're all run very differently. And then Marcy says, my second tournament is coming up in October. Woohoo! So if you are coming to MajCon in October, you'll also get to play in a tournament. And if I had to say, out of all the tournaments I run, the one that is going to be the least stressful is going to be the one that is taking place at MajCon. It is a smaller scale, just very friendly atmosphere, friendly people, and it's a lot of fun. And I think that would be a great opportunity. So the link to join us at MajCon in October is also going to be in the video description. And I think unless I've got any more questions, I think that does it. Is it free? Gloria, if you're referring to Mah Jongg, it is not free. It's a paid event, definitely, but it is 3 days, a Wednesday evening mini tournament, all day Thursday, all day Friday, with lots of stuff. Fundraising for Alzheimer's going on as well there, and workshops, social play, tournament play, Hong Kong Mah Jongg, if you want to learn it. It's going to be a fun few days for all of us Mah Jongg nuts. And I think that wraps it up because I don't see any more questions. You make it way too easy for me, guys, when you don't ask me questions. I'm telling you, but that's okay. All right, I'll make sure I get everything posted for you on YouTube, and if you want any PDFs or anything, I'm going to have a link created for that so you could take a look at that. And I thank you all for joining me tonight, and I will see you again soon. Play a lot of Mah Jongg and be well. Night, everybody. Mah Jong's all about annual conferences, tournaments, game days, workshops, educational live streams, and virtual tournaments.